Yerushalmi, it was Ru'uni Norim and Abo, they disappeared. They didn't come over to give Shalom. So getting back to the first thing, when the Rebbe came to this house, and they asked the Rebbe to give, if he'll accept Shalom, so the Rebbe said, yeah. So they lined up, a bunch of Chassidim lined up, and the Rebbe took Shalom, accepted each one, everyone gave the Rebbe the hand, shook hands, and then they left. There was one chassid that went over to the Rebbe after he shook hands with the Rebbe, and he said, I am afraid I'm becoming your chassid. So the Rebbe said, why do you have to do it with fear? You can do it with love. He says, I'm afraid. So the Rebbe said, you can do it with love. This is the inyan of the Rebbe. The inyan of the Rebbe is inyan of, in a positive sense. To do it in a fear, which fear in nature squinches a person, squashes a person, and makes a person uncomfortable, shrinks the person. You can do it with love, which is betachlas archov in the broadest sense. So b'chol eifim, therefore, the union of love, av, is the highest aveda of serving the Creator. Av, serving with love. There is no service like service with love, which is based on the Zohar. As it says, that you should love the Eibishter b'chol levavcha, with all your heart. Which this is the union of midas, emotions, with the heart, in the heart. When we call them, moving from this, we understand the ikar inyan Yitzias Mitzrayim beruchnius nifal b'aveda ruchnius b'aveda shebelei v'shebemeach. The main part of Yitzias Mitzrayim, in a spiritual sense, is accomplished in spiritual service in aveda shebelei v'meach, in the aveda of a person's heart and mind. From this we also understand, in a literal sense, what does it mean leaving Egypt? Literally. From the inyanim, from the matters as they are in a spiritual level, is a chain reaction, the inyanim, as they come down, also in a physical sense. Therefore, to understand the inyanim as they are in a literal sense, we need to understand it as they are l'mayla, as they are in the higher heavens. Which is very interesting. This whole piece of it is an interesting piece. It's not a point that the Rabbeim always mention it as an introduction to give to understand as it is in the physical sense, as it is on a spiritual level. But here the Rebbe makes a whole point from it, that since one is a chain reaction from the other, therefore, to understand it as they are in their source, we will understand it as they are here. Other times we see fakert, that they start from here, and from here we understand as they are l'mayla. Sometimes the Rebbe Rashab, for example, the Friedrich Rebbe makes a point of it. He would start from below and give an understanding how it is in a spiritual light. Here, the Rebbe chooses to understand in a spiritual light and then as is in this physical world. And the Rebbe is not done yet. The Rebbe is explaining what he means. Since there is Mitzrayim in a spiritual level, then there is Mitzrayim and Avedas HaNeshama in the service of the Neshama, which means limitation. And then there is Ruchnias, means chain of creation. Avedas HaNeshama means part of the service of the Neshama. Or Avedas HaAdam means in a practical sense, how a person conducts himself in this physical world. A person has to go out from Mitzrayim on different levels. Chain of creation, and his neshama level, and his practical level. Therefore, we mention Yitzias Mitzrayim every day. The spiritual level of the spiritual service of a person is every day. The person is created to toil. The ultimate purpose of a person is every day an aveda of harav, exerting oneself. All three different levels, as the Gemara says it in the Tractate of Sanhedrin. Talmud says in the Tractate of Sanhedrin, Amal Melocha, exerting oneself in making a livelihood, in accomplishing there should be a livelihood. Amal Sicha means prayer, and Amal Teira means exerting oneself in prayer and exerting oneself Teira in learning Teira. The kulam tzarichim diasbei from the Yitzias Mitzrayim. In all of them, there needs to be the union of leaving the bondage, leaving the boundaries, the limitations and restrictions. Since there is a general difference between the Aveda in the daytime or the Aveda at night, the person is different. The body is different. The body clock is different. The general Aveda in the Migdash is only in the daytime. In the nighttime, the gates of the Beis HaMikdash are closed. So therefore, in general, there's no Aveda then. The Aveda is only that they're watching the Beis HaMikdash. Which with this we also understand an interesting inyan that took place by the Rebbe. The B'Shavs, the Rebbe would give dollars to distribute. So there were sometimes Kayanim that went over to the Rebbe. A Kayan went over to the Rebbe that he is going to also distribute the dollars. So the Rebbe said, the Rebbe would usually, if it was in general, not by dollars and not at night, the Rebbe would say that it's questionable if you're permitted to use a Kayan for your personal use. Because a Kayan is designated for the Beis HaMikdash. So you have to ask him Mechila. You have to ask forgiveness if you could use it. That's how the Alter Rebbe writes in Siman Kuf Chav Ches in Shulchan Aruch, chapter 128 in the first part of the Shulchan Aruch, first section of the Shulchan Aruch, based on Rabbeinu Tam, that he would ask Mechila by a Kain if you're able to use him.
In the night?
General, nicht night, Bechlal. I'm talking about the daytime other times. At night, a few occasions, 1955 was one, 1978 was another, that the Rebbe told this Kayan, although you're a Kayan, but it is not Zman Aveda now. It's not the time of Aveda, Beis HaMikdash is closed now. It's at night. You're like off duty. So Mela, it's different. Which means that although he's a Kayan, but since it's not the time of the Aveda, the Rebbe felt we can use him then. It's a very interesting insight.
Is it even for a mitzvah?
For a mitzvah, you can surely use him because a mitzvah, he's doing a mitzvah, so it's also a benefit for him. But here it's like asking, like he should be meshoris him. That's the story by the Rabbi Natan.
And when it was in the morning, the Rebbe asked for forgiveness. It was a kohen.
No. He said lechatchila that this is Lav Zman Aveda. It's not the time of Aveda. But there were times when it came in the daytime, or by Fabrengen Taka, once by Fabrengen, which was Taka in the evening, but for whatever reason, the Rebbe gave Rabbi Yael Khan a Geras HaTshuva that he should give someone to learn it, a few lines. The person was making pictures in the middle of the Fabrengen. So the Rebbe wanted him to learn a few lines of Geras HaTshuva. He learned a few lines of Geras HaTshuva, and then he gave it back to Rabbi Yael Khan. Rabbi Yael Khan gave it back to the Rebbe. It was the Rebbe's personal booklet, Geras HaTshuva, which is the third section of the Tanya. The Rebbe then asked Rabbi Yael, he says, I have to ask Mechila because I was using a Kayan. So it's interesting. But here when it came to giving out dollars, or in Tovshin Tezvov, 1955, a different instance, the Rebbe said that since it's not the time of Aveda, b'meila, it doesn't go on then. Lochein gam askoras yitzias Mitzrayim yesh ba bezifanim. Since there is two Avedas, there's an Aveda service that a person does in the daytime, and then there's Aveda of nighttime. And Mashenke night is the Heichel is closed, the chamber of the Beis HaMikdash is closed. Therefore, in mentioning Yitzias Mitzrayim, yesh ba bezifanim, there's two formats. Balaylo bayem. There is mentioning Yitzias Mitzrayim in the nighttime, and there's mentioning Yitzias Mitzrayim in the daytime. What is the intention in that? This also means in a spiritual sense that there's the union of exile and redemption. The Aveda of Yitzias Mitzrayim has to be in every exile. And in every aspect of redemption from the exile. Including also the Geula from this last exile, Hagula b'meirav yameinu, the Geula, the redemption quickly in our days, Ayidei Mashiach Tzidkenu, through Mashiach. And interesting, I don't know if the Rebbe mentions it further, but the Rebbe does mention in a letter that there's two levels of Yitzias Mitzrayim. In the same way that it was in a physical sense, in midnight, and then it was in the middle of the day, B'chatzi alayla in midnight, or in the middle, and then Ba'etzem hayem hazeh. So the Rebbe says there's two lessons for a person.